Sounds good.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you, Ryan, for joining. I'm gonna talk a little bit today about American Council Study Abroad programs. We're known by a couple different names, depending on the university or the Russian department. Some students know us as ACTR. And ACTR, the American Councils for Teachers of Russian, actually helped get this program off the ground. So there is an affiliation there, but now the program is completely run by American Councils for International Education. So you might see a couple of names, but today I'm mostly going to focus on our Advanced Russian Language and Area Studies program. And as Carrie said, feel free to stop me at any point.
Sure.
To give you a little bit of a background, so American Councils, we are a nonprofit organization. We're based in DC. And in addition to study abroad programming, we also offer different types of exchanges with professionals, high school students, all the way up to postdoctoral scholars, heads of state. It really depends. But we got our start with the Soviet Union back in the 70s. And after that dissolution, we sort of expanded our country reach to include those countries within the region. And with additional programs that we brought on, we ended up branching out to parts of Africa, Eurasia, Southeast Asia, Southeast Europe. So you'll see us all over the world, but I am going to focus on our programs in Russia and Kazakhstan, specifically in study abroad. So this presentation, it'll cover a couple of different programs, but I do just want to call attention to the Russian language, since that is the program that's affiliated with your university. So this summer, the program that we'll be running is the Advanced Russian Language and Area Studies program. We have a couple of different locations for this program. At the moment, we're in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and Vladimir in Russia, and then we're also in Almaty, Kazakhstan. And there are a couple of nuances between those sites, which I'll talk about. So applicants are able to choose which site they're interested in at the time of application. And I would encourage you to reach out to the Global Learning Office prior to your application, just in case, given that we're still working through the pandemic, it's possible that we may only offer some of the sites, not all. And it's also possible that your university may only want to send students to one country or several of the cities. So it's always good to look, to be in touch closer to the application deadline. But this program, we offer 18 to 20 hours per week of in-class instruction. Prior to the start of the program, we administer pretty comprehensive pre-program language testing and placement testing. So regardless of how many students go on this program, you'll be sorted into class sizes ranging from about 2 to 6 students. So the learning is pretty individualized and it can be pretty intensive. So a lot of the students that we see go on this program do make pretty substantial gains across the 8-week summer program. So outside of your classes, we do have a couple of opportunities for additional language contact. One of those are weekly cultural activities and excursions, which are to places of interest around your host city. And once per program term, we also do what we call a regional field study, which is a trip outside of your host city, still within your host country. In the summer, it usually happens at the end of the program. And some examples of past trips, for Russia, we've had all of our participants, regardless of where they studied, come together and go on a river cruise up to the north of Russia, since that's a beautiful time of year to visit some of the wooden cathedrals and churches and monasteries up there. We've brought students to the south towards Sochi, Volgograd, and students in Kazakhstan have gone to the capital, Nur-Sultan. They've also gone to Turkestan and seen some of the remnants of the Silk Road. So there are plenty of options, and those do change seasonally. In addition to those activities, we pair all students with conversation partners. So you have an opportunity to practice your Russian outside of the class with more of a peer figure. And students have really enjoyed using conversation partners kind of as a first friend, if you will. When you're getting your feet wet in a new place, it's nice to be able to get your bearings straight by having a contact who's able to not just help you with the language and some additional academic support, but even things like knowing what there is to do around the city, different activities that you can become involved in. We also offer housing with local host families or university dormitories. So this is where it does differ by location. Currently, we only offer the dormitory option in Moscow and St. Petersburg. So students that would prefer not to live with the host family and really do want to live in a dormitory, those are currently the only 2 cities that offer the dormitory. Otherwise, we're able to pair students with host families at any of the sites. We have a network of host families that we've been using since the program's inception in 1976. So we've been running this program for almost 50 years, maybe 45 years, but getting up there. And most of our students, I would say, do elect to live with the host family just because being a Russian language program, we find that a lot of students will really take any opportunity that they can to continue immersing themselves. We do have support staff on site. So in addition to the faculty that we work with, the university partners, and some host country nationals, we also have a US or an American resident director who's based overseas. Currently, the resident directors that we have been with our program for a very long time. So they're used to, they have lots of experience working with American students, specifically in Russia or in Kazakhstan. They're able to help you through any sort of culture shock you might be having, any academic issues or questions. They also work very closely with host families and with the cultural excursions. So they're a great resource to have on hand, and they do provide 24/7 support. We also enroll students in our comprehensive overseas health evacuation and accident insurance. It's through Cultural Insurance Services International. We've been in touch with them too in terms of what they can provide with regard to COVID. So we're still ironing out our COVID policies and protocols for next summer's program. This spring actually will be the first time that we're returning to overseas programming in Russia and Kazakhstan. So we expect those protocols to evolve a little bit over the next semester, but we will have them ready by the application deadline, which is February 15th. And then lastly, I want to talk about credit that's available. So we work with Bryn Mawr College in Pennsylvania. They're our school of register. So every student that goes on this program that successfully completes it will receive academic credit either at the undergraduate or graduate level through Bryn Mawr College. I'm just going to skip over these programs for a second and talk a little bit about our application. So our application is entirely online. It involves a pre-trip survey, which is just a couple of questions for us to see how you heard about us, what your interests are, so we can better serve our community of students. We also have some biographical information. We want to make sure that your passport's up to date, see your language history, your academic history, and then the larger components are going to be a personal statement and Russian language essay, a financial aid application if you're interested in applying for financial aid from American councils, which I'll talk about next, a copy of your resume and transcripts, and the transcript should be official. So sometimes students will upload a screenshot of an unofficial grade report from their university system, but for this we do need an official copy, which you're welcome to send electronically or by mail. And then we have 2 letters of recommendation. At least one for our language programs should come from a recommender that's able to assess your language or at least talk about you in kind of an academic setting using your Russian language. In a lot of cases, because we require at least 2 semesters of college level Russian or the equivalent for this program, many students do use 2 Russian language professors that they have. That's certainly preferable. Again, if you don't have 2, at least 1. And then lastly is an application fee of $45. So in talking about our scholarships and financial aid, American Councils has a couple of different initiatives and funds that we're able to give to students to make these programs more accessible. So we offer both a need-based and diversity scholarship. This is from the American Council Study Abroad Scholarship Fund, as well as the Dan Davidson Fellowship. That's a fellowship named after Dan Davidson, who's our president emeritus and the founder of this program. All 3 of those are open to any student that's enrolled at a US university. The scholarships that we have that are a little bit more substantial, the first is the Fulbright Hayes Fellowship. So this is a scholarship that we have from the Department of Education. It's intended specifically for students who are studying Russian at the advanced level on the Advanced Russian Language and Area Studies program. It provides about, I want to say 60 to 70% towards the summer program. In some cases, it's more. And depending on whether or not you're participating in an online program or an overseas program, this fellowship is still applicable, although for the overseas program, it can only be used in the program sites of Almaty in Kazakhstan and Moscow, Russia. So that's another variance by by program site. This is a substantial scholarship. For this, students must be at the upperclassmen undergraduate level, so juniors and seniors, or a graduate student or teacher of Russian. The Title VIII Language Fellowship is specifically intended for graduate students or students who are studying at the graduate level. So if by chance you're a student who will be completing your bachelor's degree this May, and you're planning on studying abroad this summer following your graduation, so long as you've received your bachelor's degree by the start of the program, you're eligible for Title VIII, which is another scholarship we have from the Department of State, and that can provide up to 75% of funding. The last one I just want to call attention to is the Study Abroad Alumni Scholarship. If by chance you've gone on an American Council's program in the past, and this includes the Critical Language Scholarship and the National Security Language Initiative for Youth, there's an automatic $500 credit towards summer programs. And so just a couple of tips and best practices that we have from working with students. We do encourage students to start this process early. The application, while not incredibly different from other applications for study abroad programs or for schools that you might have applied to, there are quite a few documents and moving parts considering the letters of recommendation. So we encourage you to start having these conversations if you're interested in studying abroad with your global learning office, with your Russian professors, any other family members, anyone involved in this decision. We find it helpful for students to provide a copy of their personal statements to their recommenders so they can be a little bit more in the know of your Russian language goals and your intent to study abroad. So another tip we have is to share that if you feel comfortable doing so. And a couple of things that might delay us giving decisions to you are missing application fees. That's a big one. If you're applying for financial aid through American Councils, we do require that you complete a CSS profile through College Board. That can also hold up the financial aid committee from making a decision regarding your financial aid award. And again, missing letters of recommendation. So you should make sure to give your recommenders a month if possible, but at least 2 weeks. And also, if you have any questions as you're going through this process, you're always welcome to contact us. So here we have our website. It's studyabroad.americancouncils.org. I've put our general email and phone. And again, the application deadline for summer 2022 programs is February 15th. I know that was a pretty quick and wordy presentation. So if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I do have a couple, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me first off?
I can, yep.
All right, good. So my first was, given that I am a transfer student, I transferred after my freshman year to Northwestern. I have only ever had a single Russian teacher here. So who should my second recommendation come from? Like, should I try and make it someone else within the Slavic department, or is there an order of hierarchy for that, or what?
It's up to you. So did you by chance take Russian at your previous university?
I did, yeah.
School? You're welcome. The recommendations don't both need to be from Northwestern. They could be from outside. It is preferable to have 2 academic references just because it is an academic program. Right. But if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to your former professor, or if you're just not in touch, you're welcome to use one Russian professor from Northwestern, and then a professor for a different class, especially if you have a class that might be a little bit more focused on like international relations or history.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm a political science Russian language double major, so I've got plenty of them.
Perfect.
So I guess my second one was, so this is just more for the programs themselves that you're going to be offering over the course of the next year. Obviously, there's going to be the summer one. I believe that there's also a fall 2022 program, right?
Yep. So in addition to the summer, we do have fall, spring, and academic year.
Okay. So the fall program, when would the application deadline be for that?
The application deadline for our fall programs is March 15th. So it's pretty quickly after our summer program. And I will say,
so more or less the same time frame.
Yeah, within a month of each other. And I will say, just in case there are any other students who watch this that might be interested in doing both a summer and a fall, I believe we've had students from Northwestern kind of do the same dual programming in the past. You would need to submit an application for both the summer and fall programs by the first deadline, so February 15th. You would only need to pay one application fee. You don't need to ask your recommenders to complete recommendations a second time, but we do need to have two applications since it sort of affects how we process you in our system and how we process your visa. And another thing I wanted to note too, that just came back to me in talking about dual programs and thinking back to financial aid, students by chance that are applying for a Boren fellowship that they want to apply towards this program, we're able to accept outside funding such as Boren, FLAS, ROTC funding, anything from your host university or your home university that's able to be transferred over. But for Boren and ROTC, because both of those pools of money come from the Department of Defense, students that are using those funds to pay for the program have to study in Kazakhstan, just because there's a bilateral agreement right now with Russia that any sort of defense or military,
there would be a bit of difficulty there.
Right, any defense or military money can't be used for training, even if it's language training.
Right.
And the same goes for Russians in the U.S., but Kazakhstan is perfectly fine. We've worked with many cadets, midshipmen, ROTC that have had a really fantastic experience there.
And I'll just highlight from the Northwestern side, our application deadline for both summer and fall is February 10th. So if you are at all considering this program for summer, the kind of turnaround time between when you'd have to submit your application to Northwestern and American Councils is pretty short. So you would want to work on those simultaneously. And just like American Councils, we would require you to submit two separate applications. During the academic year, you would apply directly to your program of interest, whether it's Russia or Kazakhstan. But for the summer, we consider all programs not run by Northwestern to be unaffiliated summer programs. So that's just how you would apply in our system.
Okay. I guess I had just kind of one more question, which is just sort of the logistics of there were two language assessments that took place before or as part of the application. There was the just straight up exam and then an essay to be submitted. For the essay, is there a specific prompt for that, or are we welcome to submit an essay that we've written in the language prior?
That's a great question. So there's no testing requirement prior to applying to the program. We only do pre-program testing with students that we've admitted to the program. And those same students will also take post-program testing at the end of their program so that we're able to measure those results. But we also do provide those scores to students. So at the end of the program, you would receive an official letter with your speaking, reading, and listening scores, which is nice to have too for students that might be applying to jobs or just want to know for their own records. But in terms of the language application or the language essay, we do ask you to write a little bit about yourself, your goals, why you want to study abroad. It's entirely up to you. We've seen students who have used an essay that they've or repurposed an essay that they've written for a Russian language class. I think if you're at the level that you're able to kind of write a cohesive essay, we would urge you to try and follow the prompt instead. I also would advise against, we've seen some students who have just translated verbatim their personal statement into Russian for the language essay. It is helpful for us to see a little bit different, just how you think, how you phrase those goals in Russian. And for students that are applying that maybe are at the lighter end of the language prerequisite or have only taken the 2 years of college level Russian, for you, it's okay to just kind of write whatever you're comfortable with. If you don't feel that your level is such that you can fully address the prompt, you're able to just talk about anything that you're able to express in Russian. We really just want to see where your writing's at. We will not deny anyone acceptance because of poor Russian in the essay. And we really don't want you to use translators or have a native speaker look over it. We want to see kind of your raw potential.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, I'm a junior, so I've taken
Mhm.
2 years of Russian before this, and currently taking my third year. So, yeah, that's about the experience I have in the language.
Perfect.
I don't know.
Any other
This is
questions I can?
nothing in particular. I just this is something that I've been interested in doing for quite a while. I think um, most languages, and especially those that are obviously very different from English,
Mhm.
are languages that it's just remarkably difficult to learn exclusively in a classroom. It's something that you
Mhm.
really have to immerse yourself in order to gain a more totalizing understanding of, and that's my main goal when looking to do study abroad. So I think this looks like a good chance to do that. So I'm happy to look into it more.
Are
We
you,
appreciate it.
Ryan,
And
would you be thinking about fall of 2020?
Generally,
Okay.
yeah. I'm thinking about that, and it's something that I've been talking with my advisor a bit about, and about finding ways, especially since one of my majors is in Slavic studies, particularly concentrating on Russia, about how I'd be able to transfer credit from studying abroad into my, I guess, what would make up my fall courses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Chris, I know it's up in the air for spring, which of
Mhm.
the Russia locations will be available. Do you have any updates on that at this point?
um, Not at the moment. So we're working with our partner universities to kind of get all of the concrete answers that we need for providing visa support, any sort of visa extensions. At the moment, Russia is not having a great time with the pandemic. They just recently went back into lockdown. We're hopeful that things will change come the spring. But in terms of right now, if universities are closing, we can't do too much. So regardless, we will be running the online program in the spring. Um, I will say, in terms of only choosing, so we decided for the spring semester, we'll only be um, running one site in Russia and then the Almaty, Kazakhstan location. In Russia, it will be Moscow or St. Petersburg. We're going to stick to one of the larger cities. And that decision really is just going to depend on local transmission, availability of healthcare, both because Moscow and St. Petersburg are two different regions administratively. The visa situation varies slightly, kind of how we have state laws. So that will also play a role in it. We're hoping to make a decision, I believe, by the end of next week.
Okay.
Okay.
And then your hope slash expectation is that summer and fall, then you'd be able to restore all 4 locations.
That's the hope. I would say with summer, depending on, I know a lot of universities are also sort of trickling back to overseas and redefining what their health and safety policies or thresholds are. It's possible that in the summer we might only offer a couple of the Russia locations, like 1 or 2 versus all 3. The main reason being, in the past, we've run some sites like Vladimir, for example, tends to attract students that are very self-motivated, really want to be outside of a large city, and have more of that authentic Russian feel. And a lot of times it's only 1 or 2 students. And they really enjoy that because they're really forced to use their Russian every single day at every moment. That being said, because we're returning to overseas this spring, we don't really want to start off with having a student on their own. We want to try and centralize students and provide as much support as we can. So I think we'll have a better sense by come January or February what that will look like for summer. But right now it's a little tricky to say.
Okay.